The fourth critical choice that I made was to create community and belonging. On my journey, at this point, I was like 30 years old. I was 30 years old and I still didn't have a sense of belonging. But what I learned is that belonging really requires action on my part to want to belong, and then action on other people to help me along. So I created for myself my first community and truly my sense of belonging with 5 women that were still friends today, and we ended up running the Chicago Marathon together. And so that was my first community, and it was my first real experience of belonging. Since then, I've made it very purposeful and deliberate to create that amongst other communities. I am so fascinated about, of course, your perspective today on the communities that you're a part of, but you have such a unique perspective being in other countries and the communities that form there. Well, we were just talking about Africa. I mean, so I want to ask you two parts of this. One would be, what are the communities that you're a part of today that support, or what, it doesn't even need to be today, the communities that have supported your journey? And you can start with whichever one you want. Do you have any perspective or just observations of the communities that you observed while you were just in it on the ground, as you say, saving lives?
Yeah. So I think I want to start with the second part of this idea of community, because it was the most surprising part, because, I've had both perspectives of bringing students, from sub-Saharan Africa to the US to experience leadership development and training programs and their perspective. And then also even taking, so many groups of Americans and other nationals to very rough environments of a developing world country and living in those communities. And also, like I said, being part of homestays and studying abroad and living in so many various communities has been a very interesting perspective. And the thing that I gain a lot from it is that some of my counterparts, especially in Kenya and different parts of Eastern Africa, feel that we in America are very much lacking community, and that their sense of community is such a curiosity around people's well-being and their families and their jobs. And, every morning is started with a huge greeting. Every email, every interaction that I have with my partners, especially in Eastern Africa, is such a connection to the human being and to the community at hand, our families, our friends, how is everyone? And there's a huge sense of disconnect for us sometimes that, we tend not to, a lot of us know our neighbors or know even what's going on or their families or anything. And theirs is so much a connection of wanting to know each other, but it's also to help each other and to make sure everyone's okay. And so I think that, there's a lot in it of survival and of also, just cultural differences. And here in America, we occur very closed off to our own inner circles, and that our communities are very, they're very defined by who we spend time with or what, school our children go to or what clubs we're involved in or where we do our exercise or, it's just our communities kind of become defined sort of by our activities or our interests instead of really just by where we are. And I think that for me, community has evolved so much because I just love community, because I'm so curious of human beings, and I almost feel like I create community everywhere I am. And so I think you have to sort of define what that means. Does it mean that that's who is in your life forever, or is just this week that you're working with this group now your community? And can you be vulnerable and real enough and open yourself up enough to be accepted into a community, even if it's just for a day or for a lifetime? And I think it just starts to become, what does the feeling that community really gives you? And I think that feeling is feeling seen and heard for who you really are, and accepted. And that we all as humans want to feel that acceptance and that value to a community. And so I like the idea of always trying to sort of be a valuable contributor to society. And so I don't really feel like I have any super defined communities, because I'm a human being who wants to be connected to any humans that I meet in that environment, right? And so I think it's an interesting thing to think about, because of course I have groups of friends and different activities that I would say are my community. But I would just invite everyone to really take it to a more human level of what even is the feeling that we're seeking, and can you create that in your everyday life? Doesn't mean that you can't connect with your community at work, or the community that you get your coffee at. It doesn't mean that it takes away your time, or all these things I think that we have fear of. It's just be open to what you could receive.
Oh, and it's the way you describe it hits my heart and head, but hits my heart for sure. The community is a sense of being. And that is how you show up. And if I just think about, and it is how I show up. So there's no humble, but that is this sense of wanting to connect with the human being that I am interacting with. And me and you and Zach, remember the TEDx dinner? It was like people probably would have had to, we wouldn't have had dinner. We were in our little corner, like, oh, now we need to connect with other people. We didn't know each other. We knew each other, but we knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. And I only use that as an example because it was the first moment of interacting with you in person for an event that we had the next day that was going to be hard and we were nervous. But what you just said is that community could be about community can be formed in an interaction during an event. It doesn't need to be a lifelong. Now, through that community, through that connection and interaction, some people may choose to continue to grow that and nurture that, which you and I have.
For sure.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Choose and Become interview series. To check out more episodes, go to www.trishkendall.com/podcast, or go to any of your favorite podcast channels, including YouTube, under Trish Kendall Speaks, and you'll find this interview and more. Choose and become.